Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. We're going to talk about dungeon mastering, and we're going to talk about loss of control, specifically from the perspective of a fighter jet. All right, so I am incredibly excited about Top Gun Maverick coming out. Excuse me. So I saw a trailer. I was in the movies recently. I saw a trailer on the big screen, and it looks fantastic. I'm really excited. It's the last. I think it's the last trailer for Top Gun Maverick, and also very thankfully, Paramount, who owned the original Top Gun, and I think they still own Top Gun Maverick. They made sure that their film is on Netflix. Right, that's a big deal because, like, if Top Gun is on Netflix, nobody needs, like, the possum under my porch has Netflix. Everybody has access to Netflix at the macro level. There's a couple exceptions, but I don't care about exceptions. So basically, I'm not talking about exceptions. I do care about exceptions. I just don't. I don't like talking about them. I think they're a waste of time because you're talking to three people in the world. What's the point? So basically, the you have this situation where so Top Gun is on Netflix and everybody can watch it and get ready for Top Gun Maverick and drop right into the series, right? And it looks fantastic. So I'm watching Top Gun as well. And in the trailer for Top Gun Maverick, they show this serious issue where Maverick is training other fighter pilots, and what he does is he puts his plane between two other planes that are he flies his plane through a formation, right? Of two other planes that he's training, two other fighter pilots that he's training. This is outrageously dangerous, and what it shows in the movie is that once he does this, he breaks both planes' forward momentum. So they're flying in formation, and what he does is he breaks not only their formation, he breaks their both planes' forward momentum, which means they have no lift and both planes go into loss of control. Okay? And that what is loss of control? It means when the belly, it's basically, you need to be heading forward as an airplane, as a fighter jet or any kind of airplane. You move forward and that creates thrust over the wings and that gives you lift, right? If you no longer have forward momentum where wind is flowing over your wings to give you lift, you're in loss of control, okay? And your fighter jet will hurtle to the ground, and if you're not able to get it back in control within enough time, you will hit the ground and you will die, period, right? And so this is a very, very real, incredibly dangerous situation. So you're looking at this and you're like, wait a second, did Maverick just, put these two in a life or death situation? The answer is yes, right? And there's a lot there. The reason, because I've seen a million military films, I already know the answer to this. And I think the military still does this today. They're like, we're going to put our soldiers in outrageously dangerous situations because it's in a controlled environment. And yes, it is going to be incredibly dangerous and they might die. But the reality is that we don't train them with an edge. If we don't train them with a sense of danger, they're going to fold under pressure when it's real, right? And so that's what, Maverick, of course, is doing. For us as dungeon masters, I think it's important to understand, when can we lose control? What are we losing? When can we go into loss of control? When can we know that our forward momentum is gone and the air that's going over our wings is no longer giving us lift, and the thing we're in is in loss of control, okay? Where would we hit loss of control? All right, there's three things you can get loss of control in. You can have loss of control in a scene, you can have loss of control in a session, and you can have loss of control in a campaign, okay? Now, the first thing to do is to recognize you have loss of control in the scene, right? You have loss of control in the session. The fix on both of these are the same, okay? Whenever you get loss of control in a scene or loss of control in a session, this usually comes from different sources. The source can be, you're not stable at the moment. You personally, you might be emotionally unstable, you might be intellectually unstable, right? And for the duration of the scene or the duration of the session, right? The first thing to do to get yourself out of a loss of control is to determine is to identify you're in a loss of control and then take efforts to fix it, right? So how do you fix a loss of control in a scene or in a session? The fix is the same. You end the scene or the session as quickly as possible in the distinct favor of the players, right? Because if you do that, if you let the scene end and and you allow one player character to, take a single stroke strike, and that defeats all enemies on the table, regardless of how many hit points they have. And there's lots of ways to do this. You're the dungeon master. You have control of weather. You have control of deities. You have control of everything, right? So if you just give a very succinct, powerful win to the players, to the player characters, you have a chance of getting out of that scene or that session well, right? And the reason why is your players won't push you on it, right? But if you try to end the scene or the session and you try to take the win for yourself as the dungeon master, right? And I understand this whole thing about dungeon masters are not competing with their players, right? But there are times, and if you have particular players, you can very much find yourself in competition with them, right? At particular points in the game, and you can manage that, right? But if you find yourself in a loss of control or a scene or a session, you end in favor of the players, right? And the reason why is there'll be a smile on their face. There's a tension. The tension that's been building will release, right? But if you put them in their place and you end the scene where they're losing, you're going to have problems from the players, right? They're going to be like, hey, I don't think that was fair. I don't think you did this rule right. I don't think, and they're legitimately going to have issues, and you're going to still be in a loss of control situation, right? Once that happens in a scene or a session, right, you can then determine whether you need to end the session. So if you lost control of a single scene, you need to ask yourself if you need to end the session, collect yourself, and regroup next week, right? Or if you lose control of a session, you need to stop and say, oh my gosh, I lost complete control of that session, right? Am I competent or fit to continue with the campaign, right? If you lose control of a campaign, it's a bigger issue, right? One, you may have significant problems. You may have a player problem, right? You may be the problem. Or you may have relationships problems with your players, right? And you're going to need to determine, and you need to determine which one of those they are. And then you have to determine, can I fix this in flight, right? Like while the campaign's still going, or do I need to end this campaign, take another month or two, and then start up a new campaign, right? And so loss of control is a very real thing in dungeon mastering. You can lose control of a scene, you can lose control of a session, you can lose control of a campaign, all right? Now I've given you tools for very smoothly, and if you find yourself in a loss of control, I've given you some options on how to deal with that at the scene or the session level. If you determine that you have loss of control in a campaign, that's a big problem. You need to do some real thinking, in the next week. Determine what the issue is. Do you have a problem player? Is there a problem within yourself, or is there a problem is there a problem with you and one or more of your players, right? And that's very real. And I can't even addressing that would not fit within this video, right? More than me just saying you need to give some serious thought about shutting down the campaign. And generally, if you're shutting down campaigns like this, you don't want to restart them. You want to start fresh and start new, right? But don't start fresh and start new until you have a very clear understanding of what ended that campaign, right? So as dungeon masters, just be aware you can get yourself into a situation that is loss of control, where the air that's going over your wings is no longer giving thrust, right? And your belly to the ground is going in a direction it should not. The belly of your campaign, just like a belly of a fighter jet, is no longer going in the right direction. It's not pointed in the right direction, right? And you've really got to do some serious flying to get this thing done, or you got to hit the eject button, right? Like that, and that's the reality. So just be aware of when you're in a loss of control scene, session, campaign. I've given you tools for scenes and session. Also, I'm curious, what are your thoughts if you find yourself in a loss of control on a campaign? How do you identify that you're in that situation, and then how do you fix it? Have you fixed sessions where you were have you fixed campaigns where you're positive you experienced a loss of control? How did you get that campaign back under control? I'd love to hear I'd love to hear your thoughts on all this. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider like subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.